Cheap laptops that promise studio-grade performance for a bargain price usually end up feeling like a broken promise the minute you open the box. I've seen a lot of people buy a sub-$1,000 thin and light machine, only to watch it choke on a single 4K render, or a large simulation, and then wonder why they spent the extra cash on a professional laptop that never lives up to the hype. The question is whether the Lenovo ThinkPad P15 Gen 2 actually feels like a smarter buy instead of just another overpriced hype machine. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The first thing I did after unboxing the P15 was plug it into my external monitor and fire up a CAD project that usually runs on my desktop workstation. The Intel Core i7-11800H, an octa-core chip with a base clock of 2.3 GHz, didn't just handle the UI, it actually kept up when I sliced through a 200,000 line assembly file. In a side-by-side test with a typical consumer laptop of similar price, the ThinkPad completed the same operation in about half the time. That tells me the CPU isn't just fast on paper, it translates into real time when you're moving, rotating, or recalculating complex geometry. The NVIDIA T1200 with 4 GB of VRAM is another piece of the puzzle that often gets lost in spec sheets. It's a workstation-class GPU, not a gaming card, which means the drivers are tuned for professional software like SolidWorks, AutoCAD, and Adobe Premiere. I ran a 1080p video export using Premiere Pro's GPU-accelerated effects, and the render finished roughly 30% quicker than on a laptop that only has integrated graphics. For anyone who spends their day moving large video files or 3D textures, that kind of time savings adds up. Storage is another place where the P15 shows its practical side. The 512GB SSD is a single NVMe drive, which means you get those sub-second load times you expect from a high-end machine. I copied a 12GB project folder containing textures, models, and a video timeline, and the file appeared on the desktop in under 5 seconds. That's a noticeable improvement over the older SATA-based drives you still see on cheaper workstations. Of course, 512GB isn't endless, so you'll probably need an external backup, or a secondary drive for massive archives, but for day-to-day project files it's more than enough. The 15.6-inch Full HD panel isn't a 4K display, but the 1920x1080 resolution still feels crisp for both work and a bit of entertainment. I watched a couple of 4K movies on it, and while the laptop downscales the video, the colors stayed accurate and the motion stayed smooth thanks to the decent 60Hz refresh rate. If you're a designer who relies on color-critical work, you'll probably want an external calibrated monitor, but for most engineers and video editors the built-in screen is a solid secondary display. Now, let's talk about the things that could make you think twice. 16GB of RAM sounds decent on the spec sheet, but when you're running multiple heavy applications, say, a full CAD suite, a virtual machine, and a browser with dozens of tabs, memory pressure can become noticeable. The laptop does support a second SODIMM slot, so you can upgrade to 32GB later, but you'll have to open the chassis, which isn't as convenient as a laptop that comes with more RAM out of the box. If you know you'll be juggling large datasets or complex simulations, consider budgeting for that upgrade from the start. Weight and battery life are also practical concerns. The ThinkPad P15 is built like a tank. At about 5.5 pounds, it's not something you'll want to toss into a backpack for a coffee shop commute. The battery, a 80 Wh pack, gives you roughly 5 to 6 hours of mixed use, enough for a morning of meetings and a couple of design reviews, but not for a full day away from a power outlet. If you need something ultra-portable, this isn't the machine you'd pick. Think of it more as a mobile workstation you can bring to the office or a client site, not a travel light laptop. Who should buy this ThinkPad? If you're a professional engineer, architect, or video editor who needs a certified workstation that can run IS-validated drivers, the P15 hits the sweet spot. The combination of a strong CPU, a workstation GPU, and a reliable SSD means you can open large assemblies, render frames, and compile code without the system screaming for a break. It also fits nicely into corporate IT environments that demand Lenovo's manageability features, such as BIOS password protection and remote update tools. For freelancers who bill by the hour, the time saved on renders and simulations can quickly outweigh the higher upfront cost. On the flip side, if your daily tasks revolve around email, web browsing, occasional spreadsheet work, and streaming video, the P15 is overkill. You'd likely spend the same money on a slimmer Ultrabook with longer battery life and a lighter chassis, and you wouldn't miss the workstation GPU at all. Students who are just starting out in design might also find a less expensive model sufficient.